Now, there are those who subscribe to theories like the Khazar theory, who believe that they're Turkic people and they're converts. I cannot subscribe to that theory because it's been debunked so many times. And so there are those black Israelites that teach that they are not actually Israelites, but they're converts to the Jewish faith. The Jews who occupy the land of Israel right now are light-skinned and white-skinned. Now you've got some dark-skinned Jews as well. Matter of fact, this last time I was there, it's probably the most diverse group of Israelites I encountered. But there's more to Israel than white-skinned Jews, as the world commonly knows Jews to be white-skinned, Ashkenazim. Now, there are those who subscribe to theories like the Khazar theory, who believe that they're Turkic people and they're converts. I cannot subscribe to that theory because it's been debunked so many times.
Now, this is coming from an article titled "Out of Khazaria, Evidence for Jewish Genome Lacking." This is coming from Aaron Elhake, an Ashkenazi Jewish geneticist. It reads, Aaron Elhake, a geneticist at the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, thinks so. In a recently published study in Genome Biology Evolution, he is calling for a rewrite of commonly held assumptions about Jewish ancestry. Instead of being primarily the descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel, present-day Jewish populations are, finds Elhake, primarily the children of a Turkish people who lived in what now is Russia, north of Georgia, east of Ukraine. This civilization, the Khazars, converted from tribal religions to Judaism between the 7th and 9th centuries. The controversy cut into Elhake's works runs deep. Far past the lab bench, among some circles, his conclusions are bound to be unpopular. This is the first scientific paper to prove the Khazarian hypothesis and reject the Rhineland hypothesis, he says, and with it about 40 years of research. Although his findings will not be welcome in all circles, Elhake's interest is more medical than political. All I want is to help my colleagues who are studying genetic disorder, he says. I hope this work will open up a new era in genetic studies where population stratification will be used more. Let's highlight another point of this article. Previous studies had, for example, combined the question of similarity among and between Jewish populations and the question of ancestry and relatedness to non-Jewish populations. Elhake viewed these questions separately. Jewish communities are less homogeneous than is popularly thought, he says, with Jewish communities along the former Khazarian border showing the most heterogeneity. His second question centered on ancestry. When comparing Jewish communities to their non-Jewish neighbors, Caucasus or Levant, in other words, Middle Eastern populations, which is the closest to Jews. All Eurasian Jewish communities are closer to Caucasus populations, he writes, with Central European Jews closer to Italian non-Jews as the exception. Not one of the 8 evaluated Jewish populations were closer to Levant populations. Let me read that again. Not one of the 8 evaluated Jewish populations were closer to Levant populations. So I want to say this again. Not a single Negro or African group was included in any of their testing. And again, when I say their testing, I am referring to the Israeli geneticists. They were very selective of the Eurasian people groups they chose in an attempt to manipulate or control or dictate their expected output.
Now, there are those who subscribe to theories like the Khazar theory, who believe that they're Turkic people and they're converts. I cannot subscribe to that theory because it's been debunked so many times.
First, let me, when you see Ashkenazi Jews sharing high similarity to Romanians and Hungarians. This is because both of these populations were offshoots of the Khazars. They were both founded by these members of the Caucasus who ruled this area of north of the Black Sea, where we have South Russia nowadays, between the 7th and 13th centuries. Very powerful empire. They converted to Judaism in the 8th century, and they sent offshoots to Eastern Europe. And we still, some Ashkenazi Jews are mapped to this region of Ukraine. They're not all mapped to Ashkenaz. Most of them are, but some of them are mapped to Ukraine, and we can see very nicely some kind of migration route using GPS.
Now, there are those who subscribe to theories like the Khazar theory, who believe that they're Turkic people and they're converts. I cannot subscribe to that theory because it's been debunked so many times.
Are you familiar with the Khazar theory? There's a theory, it's widely accepted as anti-Semitic, that Ashkenazi Jews come from the Khazars and they're not Levantine. But DNA tests.
It's not anti-Semitic. It's a question of fact. So Shlomo Sand, for example, has argued that, I think probably exaggerated, but it's simply a question of fact. If my ancestors from the Ukraine have Khazar roots, changes nothing. I'm Jewish. My grandfather was Jewish. My family happens to have a story saying that we're descended from the Baal Shem Tov. Okay, that's part of the culture. Doesn't matter what the DNA shows.
Now, there are those who subscribe to theories like the Khazar theory, who believe that they're Turkic people and they're converts. I cannot subscribe to that theory because it's been debunked so many times.
This story begins in October 1949, 1 year after Israel's formation. This is when Netanyahu was born, the second child of a historian. His paternal grandfather was a rabbi and a Zionist writer. His name was Nathan Milikowski. Later in life, he Hebraized his surname from Milikowski to Netanyahu, a name which means God has given.
This is Yair Netanyahu's DNA test that has been leaked. You can see right there his Y DNA is RM198. Descendants of RM198 come from Poland, Russia, Germany, and other European countries. Does this look Semitic to you? Does this look Middle Eastern?
Now, there are those who subscribe to theories like the Khazar theory, who believe that they're Turkic people and they're converts. I cannot subscribe to that theory because it's been debunked so many times.
As far as the alleged conversion of the Khazars, you can read at Yehuda Halevi's book, The Khazari, that it may be true that as there is debate and discussion, there are Turkic people a little over 1,000 years ago, that some of the leaders or some of the people did, in fact, convert to Judaism and then became part of the larger Jewish people a little over 1,000 years ago, that some of the leaders or some of the people did, in fact, convert to Judaism and then became part of the larger Jewish people a little over 1,000 years ago. A little over 1,000 years ago. A little over 1,000 years ago.
Now, there are those who subscribe to theories like the Khazar theory, who believe that they're Turkic people and they're converts. I cannot subscribe to that theory because it's been debunked so many times. And so there are those black Israelites that teach that they are not actually Israelites, but they're converts to the Jewish faith. I right now presently don't agree with that because I don't see any evidence that points to that. But I do agree and believe that there are black Israelites. And I don't just mean Ethiopian Jews or Cushite Jews. No, I'm talking about, I subscribe to, look, find my Father's Day Juneteenth lesson of 2022. And that's where I publicly affirm my belief that the slaves, transatlantic slaves, are Hebrews, are Jews, that the Jews were brought over. What's the song? It leaves my mind right now. The Negro spirit. Kumbaya. That's Hebrew. Kumbaya. Kum And Yah are blatant Hebrew words. Ba is possibly a Hebrew, seems to be a Hebrew syllable. Kumbaya is Hebrew. So how are these black people? How are these black people singing? Not come by here, Lord. Rise up for me, Lord. That's what they were singing. So I'm a firm believer. Meaning what? The gentleman sitting right here, speaking into this podcast microphone, believes wholeheartedly. I'm an Israelite. Yeah, I'm an Israelite, and I'm Hebrew.
What's your thoughts? Please be respectful with your comments. Also, please click the like, click the notification bell, and subscribe to this channel.
Listen, Genesis chapter 11 verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this back, Genesis 14 verse 13, Abraham steps on the scene. Being a descendant of Shem, which is a fact, means Abraham too was Abraham, born in the city of a black man called Nimrod, grandson of Ham. Ham had 4 sons. One was named Canaan. Here, let me do some explaining. Abraham, Isaac was Jacob had 12 sons, for real, and these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10.